Maya stood silently behind the intricately carved wooden door, her pure white wedding dress hugging her figure like a promise of eternal happiness. But the vile whispers from the room on the other side of that door shattered that dream. The voice of Ethan, her white American fiancé, rang out cold and cruel, laced with the mocking laughter of his best friend Jake. "I wish she were whiter. It'd match the wedding dress better," Ethan said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Her dark skin. It's off-brand." Maya, a black American woman, felt her blood rush to her face, tears threatening to spill. Ethan continued, his tone growing even more ruthless. "I just have to tolerate her family for a few hours. Then they'll crawl back to whatever slum they came from." He laughed as if he'd just delivered the punchline of a joke. But what shattered Maya's heart the most was when Ethan revealed his true motive. "Marrying her is my way of scoring points with Mr. Carter. The guy loves bragging about supporting the black community. A diverse marriage like this will boost my chances of becoming a director." Jake laughed loudly, a willing accomplice. "Smart move. But are you sure living with someone like her? I couldn't handle it." Ethan shrugged, his voice icy. "I'll keep her in check. After the wedding, she'll know her place." Each word was like a knife, plunging into Maya's heart. She pressed a hand over her mouth, trying to stifle the sobs. The edge of her veil brushed against the door, as she unconsciously leaned in, needing to confirm that this wasn't just a nightmare. The man who had once knelt to propose, who once said he loved her, had just ripped off his mask, revealing himself as a racist, a manipulator using her for his advancement. Maya burst out of the hallway, her white wedding dress billowing behind her like a torn sail in a violent storm. The cruel laughter of Ethan and Jake still echoed in her head, every word like a blade twisting deeper into her heart. "I just have to tolerate her family. I'll keep her in check." Those words weren't just betrayal. They were a direct assault on who she was, on her skin, on the family she loved. She stopped at a quiet corner of the church corridor, her back pressing against the cold wall, breaths coming in short, ragged gasps. Tears streamed down her face, smudging the meticulous makeup she'd prepared for what she believed would be the most beautiful day of her life. She wanted to scream. She tried to storm back into that room and confront Ethan, to make him see she was no pawn in his twisted game. But her legs were frozen, weighed down by pain and disbelief. Looking down at her wedding dress, the once sparkling seams now felt like a cruel joke. It was no longer a symbol of love. It was a fake suit of armor, concealing the horrific truth about the man she was about to marry. "How could he?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The image of Ethan kneeling to propose, his seemingly sincere eyes now replayed like a perfectly rehearsed scene in a masterful act of deception. Caught in the chaos of her emotions, Maya yanked the veil from her head and threw it onto the cold stone floor. That single act felt like a declaration of war against her heartbreak. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't let anyone see her like this, a shattered bride, before the ceremony began. With trembling hands, she fled through the church's back door, the clicking of her heels echoing against the stone floor, matching the furious rhythm of her heartbeat. She ran across the lawn, the setting sun casting golden light over her tear-streaked face. Hundreds of guests were still waiting inside the church, her family and her friends, all believing this was a day of joy. But Maya knew she had to leave to collect herself and decide what came next, even if only for a while. Each step she took was a battle between the fury screaming for confrontation and the fear of what would happen if she did. Amid her anguish, standing on the grass behind the church, Maya's breath came heavy and uneven as memories of Ethan came rushing back like an old film reel, both sweet and bitter. She remembered the early days of their love, when her heart was still filled with hope for a romance that could rise above every barrier. As a black woman raised in Harlem, Maya had grown accustomed to the stares, the snide remarks, and the endless reminders that her skin made her different. But her mother, Grace, had always told her, "You're a diamond baby. And one day, someone's gonna see your light." That belief had nurtured Maya's dream of love, even in a world that often tried to tell her she wasn't worthy of it. She met Ethan at a charity event in Manhattan 2 years earlier, where he worked for a prominent public relations firm. Ethan, with his blonde hair and the confident smile of a white American man, stood out in the crowd. He had approached her with polite curiosity, asking about her family, about her love for jazz, and even tasting her mother's fried chicken during a visit. "I've never had anything this good," he said, eyes gleaming. And though Maya was cautious, she couldn't help but be drawn in by his charm. During those first few months, Ethan seemed perfect. He listened as she spoke about growing up in a marginalized community and her dreams of becoming a fashion designer. He brought her flowers, took her to movies, and whispered, "You're special, Maya." Her family welcomed him with open arms, though not without skepticism. Her father, Marcus, remained quiet but observant. Her mother, Grace, smiled warmly, but occasionally asked in hushed tones, "Are you sure he understands you, baby?" When Ethan proposed at a small restaurant, dropping to one knee with a sparkling ring, Maya felt the world stop spinning. "Let's build a life together, Maya. I love you," he had said, and she believed him. The applause of friends echoed around them as she nodded through joyful tears. She had no idea that behind Ethan's smile was a cold, calculated plan. The love he professed was just a performance designed to serve his ambition. Standing under the golden glow of sunset, Maya wrapped her arms around herself, the betrayal slicing deeper than anything she had imagined. It wasn't just Ethan who had deceived her. It was the trust she had placed in love itself. Those once sweet memories were now tainted as a beautiful painting slashed to ribbons. And yet, amid the heartbreak, something else stirred within her, a fire. She couldn't let Ethan continue this deception, not just of her, but everyone waiting inside that church. Not her family, not her friends, and not herself. Under the fading hues of twilight, standing on the grass behind the church, Maya felt every memory of Ethan pierce her heart like tiny needles. She began to realize that the cruel truth she had just overheard wasn't an unexpected blow. It was the culmination of signs she had willfully ignored. Moments that had once seemed trivial now surfaced with painful clarity, each a puzzle piece in the deceptive portrait she had convinced herself not to see. From the very beginning, there had been unsettling moments. Once, when she brought Ethan home for dinner, he glanced at her father, Marcus's worn-out shoes, and blurted, "Does he not have a newer pair?" He'd masked it with a smile, but his eyes betrayed discomfort. Maya had told herself it was just a matter of different backgrounds, that he would adjust to her family over time. But now she saw it for what it was, quiet disdain. Ethan's mother, Linda, had been another red flag. During family gatherings, she always kept her distance, sometimes refusing to shake Grace's hand under the excuse, "I'm feeling a little tired." She often stood in a corner, arms crossed, lips tight, whenever Maya's mother spoke about the cultural traditions of their Harlem community. Maya used to think Linda was just shy. Now she saw it clearly. It was discomfort, if not prejudice. Then there were Ethan's comments, remarks that had pricked at Maya's heart, but which she had brushed aside. When she once told him about a coworker who gave her a discriminatory look, he shrugged. "You're being too sensitive." Maybe they were having a bad day. Another time, when Grace mentioned a black cultural festival the family attended, Ethan scoffed. "Sounds more like a block party than culture." He'd apologized quickly, but his apologies always rang hollow. Maya had convinced herself these were everyday bumps in any relationship, differences to be bridged with love and patience. She wanted to believe Ethan loved her, that he saw her worth beyond her skin color or background. But now, standing in a wedding dress that had become a symbol of betrayal, Maya regretted letting love blind her. Those signs weren't random. They were cracks in the false wall Ethan had built around his intentions. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms as if punishing herself for her naivety. But alongside the pain, a flicker of resolve ignited. Ethan had counted on her being easy to manipulate. He thought she would walk obediently into the trap he had set, but she wouldn't let him win. Not today. Not on the day he planned to use her as a pawn for his ambition. In the crisp evening breeze, sweeping across the church lawn, Maya felt her heart tighten under the weight of painful memories and bitter truths. She began to think of Ethan, not as the man she once loved, but as the person he truly was, beneath the mask of perfection. The words he had spoken to Jake weren't just a personal betrayal. They were the final reveal of a calculated scheme where she and her family were nothing more than pawns in his ambitious game. Ethan had grown up in a middle-class white suburb of Connecticut, a place where racial bias was woven into polite jokes and wary glances. His family, especially his mother Linda, prided themselves on traditional values and frequently showed discomfort with the growing diversity in their neighborhood. Ethan had learned early on how to hide those views, not because he sought change, but because he understood that in the modern world, especially in the public relations industry, appearing inclusive was the key to advancement. He joined a PR firm right after college and quickly climbed the ranks thanks to his charisma and polished image. His boss, Mr. Carter, was prominent in sponsoring programs supporting the Black community and championing equity initiatives. Ethan quickly realized that if he wanted to be promoted to regional director, a significant leap in his career, he'd need to do something impressive to earn Mr. Carter's favor. Meeting Maya at the charity event had not been a coincidence. Ethan had chosen her not out of love, but because she fit perfectly into his plan. A wise, beautiful Black woman with a close-knit family representing the community Mr. Carter was passionate about supporting. In Ethan's eyes, marrying Maya was a strategic move, a way to present himself as a progressive man, while carefully curating his public image for his boss and colleagues. He meticulously planned everything from feigning interest in her culture to spending lavishly on a grand wedding, to create the illusion that he was a man of unity and openness. But behind the sweet words and the carefully practiced smiles, Ethan had never seen Maya or her family as equals. He viewed them as valuable tools until they no longer served his purpose. The times he mocked Marcus's worn shoes or showed irritation at Grace's stories weren't slips, they were glimpses of his true self. Maya now recognized these moments as signs of a deep-seated contempt he had worked so hard to disguise. Standing in the grass, Maya felt a fury rising within her, not just at Ethan, but at the system that enabled men like him to believe they could exploit women like her without consequence. She was not a pawn. She was Maya, daughter of Marcus and Grace, a woman who had risen above prejudice and insult to build her own life. Ethan had underestimated her, and that would be the greatest mistake he ever made. The evening breeze swept across the church lawn, carrying a chill that made Maya shiver from the weather and the storm raging inside her. The wedding dress, now a burden more than a dream, clung to her like a cruel reminder of Ethan's betrayal. She knew she couldn't stay here forever, couldn't let the pain consume her. She needed somewhere safe, somewhere to gather herself and figure out how to face the horrifying truth that had just been exposed. With trembling legs, Maya hurried down a narrow path, her heels clicking, echoing on the pavement, leading her to a small cafe, tucked behind a row of ancient oaks. Inside, the soft golden glow of the cafe lights contrasted sharply with the frozen ache in her heart. She settled into a quiet corner, shrinking into herself to avoid the few scattered patrons. The owner, Rosa, a kind-eyed Latina woman with silver hair, instantly noticed the pain across Maya's face. Without a word, she placed a glass of water and a steaming cup of tea in front of her and said gently, "Sweetheart, I've seen wounds like this before. Drink. Find your strength again." When Maya tried to pay, Rosa waved her off with a soft shake of her head and eyes filled with compassion. Not today. What you need more than money right now is kindness. Those simple words pierced the fog of Maya's agony like a ray of sunlight. She took a sip of tea, the warmth calming her ragged breath. Reaching into the small, hidden pocket in her wedding dress, an idea her mother Grace insisted on for essentials, she pulled out her phone and dialed her cousin Aisha, who was still at the church with the other guests. Aisha, Maya's voice trembled over the line. I need you. Meet me at the back parking lot near the big oaks. Please, come alone. Sensing the desperation in her cousin's voice, Aisha asked no questions. 10 minutes later, she arrived, heels tapping briskly across the pavement, face full of worry. Maya, what happened? She asked, eyes widening at the sight of Maya in her wedding dress, mascara streaked across her cheeks, unable to hold it in any longer. Maya told her everything, Ethan's vile words, his mocking of her skin color and her family, and his calculated plan to use their marriage as a career move. Every word was like a blade, but with each spoken, Maya felt stronger. At first, stunned, Aisha's expression quickly hardened into fury. He said that she hissed, her fists clenched. Maya, you don't have to endure this. We're going to make him pay. She pulled Maya into a tight hug, wrapping her in a strength Maya didn't realize she so desperately needed. In Aisha's arms, Maya felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone. Aisha. Maya whispered, I want people to know the truth. I want to expose him. Aisha nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. All right, we'll do it. But we're going to do it the right way. He's not getting away with this. In the quiet corner of the cafe, the soft golden light bathed Maya's face where the tears had dried. But a new fire burned in her eyes, the fire of resolve. Beside her, Aisha sat close, hands clenched, as if ready for battle. Ethan's cruel words still echoed in Maya's mind, but they no longer made her shrink in pain. Instead, they became fuel to act, to tear down the polished mask he had so carefully constructed. He thinks I'm easy to fool, Maya said, her voice trembling, but sharp. But I'll show him just how wrong he is. Aisha nodded, her eyes glinting with fierce agreement. We need evidence, Maya. If you want to expose him to everyone, we must get something undeniable. She pulled out her phone and opened a voice recording app. I'm going back to the church. I'll pretend I'm worried about him, like I'm trying to figure out where you went. He's arrogant, he'll slip up and I'll get it on tape. Maya took a deep breath, weighing the plan. The idea of confronting Ethan in front of hundreds of guests, her family, friends, and Mr. Carter, the very man Ethan wanted to impress, made her heart pound, but she knew it was the only way. They needed a recording strong enough to reveal not just Ethan's racism, but his cold, calculated motives. You have to be careful, Maya said, her voice tight and worried. He's smart. If you push too hard, he'll get suspicious. Aisha smiled, a mix of confidence and cunning in her expression. Don't worry. I know how to make men like him dig their graves. I'll say you're panicking and think he doesn't love you. He'll want to show off to prove he's in control. She placed a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. You stay here. Keep in touch with your mom. I'll text you the moment I get anything. Maya nodded, both anxious and hopeful. She took out her phone and typed a message to her mother. Grace. Mom, I'm okay, but I need some time. Don't tell anyone. I'll explain everything soon. She knew her mother would worry, but keeping this plan secret was crucial until it succeeded. As she sent the message, Rosa, the cafe owner, walked by and placed a small plate of cookies on the table. Eat something, sweetheart, she said warmly. You need strength for the fight ahead. Maya offered a faint smile, her heart touched by the kindness of this stranger. Maya grabbed her hand when Aisha stood up, smoothing her dress, and checking her phone. "Thank you," she whispered. "If it weren't for you, I don't know what I'd do." Aisha squeezed her hand tightly. "We're family, Maya, and no one gets to hurt you without facing the consequences." With a determined nod, Aisha left the cafe, her footsteps full of purpose, as she headed back toward the church. Maya remained seated sipping her tea again, heart pounding. The plan was in motion, but whether it succeeded or failed now rested on Aisha's ability to lure Ethan into revealing his true nature. She stared out the window as the last rays of sunset faded into dusk and whispered to herself, "He won't get away with this. Not today." Aisha stepped into the church, her heart pounding, but her stride steady. Inside, chaos had begun to take hold. Guests whispered among themselves, eyes darting across the room, uneasy as the wedding scheduled to start over an hour ago remained stalled. Some checked their phones. Others stood as if ready to leave. Ethan stood in a corner trying to wear a mask of concern, but Aisha noticed the tension in his clenched fists. He knew something was wrong, and she was determined to exploit that weakness. She took a deep breath, adjusting her expression to anxious worry, and approached him. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling slightly, as if struggling to stay composed. "People are saying Maya's disappeared. Do you know where she is?" Ethan turned, his eyes briefly flashing with suspicion before he masked it with a shrug. "How would I know?" he snapped. "She just took off without saying a word." "Did she tell you anything?" Aisha lowered her head, feigning hesitation. Her fingers brushed her purse strap, where her phone recorded every word. "Actually, Maya called me. She sounded panicked. She said she feared she didn't belong with you or your family, that your mom doesn't like our family, and something about comments from your friend. She's scared you don't love her." Ethan frowned, a smirk creeping onto his face. "Panicked. She's being dramatic," he said with a mocking tone. "She's always been overly sensitive. I've put up with her family, how they dress and talk like they don't belong here. But I'm still here, right? She should be grateful I chose her." Aisha's blood boiled, but she kept her composure, leaning in, as if confiding in him. "I get what you mean. But Maya said she overheard something, that you were marrying her for another reason, not love. Is that true, Ethan? I want to clear things up for her." Ethan hesitated, eyes scanning Aisha's face, as if assessing whether he could trust her. His arrogance won out. "Listen," he said, his voice low but chillingly clear. "Marrying Maya is a strategic move. My boss, Mr. Carter, loves those racial harmony stories. A wedding like this makes me look good to him. I'm not saying I don't care about Maya, but she needs to know her place. After the wedding, I'll ensure she and her family don't embarrass me." Aisha bit her lip, feigning shock, while her heart thundered with victory. She had the proof. Every cruel word recorded, the carefully crafted facade of Ethan Caldwell shattered in audio. But she wasn't done yet. "So, you don't love her?" she pushed gently. "I mean, I'm just worried for Maya. She believes you do." Ethan laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Love. I'm doing this for my future. She benefits. I benefit. And everyone's happy. But if she runs off over something stupid like this, she was never wife material." Aisha nodded, pretending to agree, though her insides churned with fury. "I'll try calling her again. Maybe she needs time." She stepped away quickly, heart racing, gripping her purse tightly. She stopped the recording in a hidden corner of the church and checked her phone. Ethan's voice rang out clearly. Every smug, cruel confession was a dagger to his image as the perfect fiancé. She texted Maya. "I got it." He exposed himself completely. "Sending you the audio now. What do you want to do next?" Standing there, adrenaline pumping, Aisha waited for the reply. nervous, excited, and hopeful. She knew this recording was their most potent weapon to bring Ethan down. But one question remained. Would Maya have the strength to confront him in front of everyone? In the quiet corner of the small cafe, Maya clutched her phone, heart pounding as she read Aisha's message. "I've got everything." He exposed himself. "I'm sending the audio now." "What do you want to do next?" She tapped the audio file. Through her earbuds, Ethan's voice played cold and condescending. "Marrying Maya is an opportunity. She needs to know her place." Each word struck her dignity like a hammer. But instead of breaking her, it fueled a deeper flame, one of justice. Maya knew she couldn't do this alone. She texted her mother, Grace. "Mom, I need you. I'm at Rosa's Cafe on Elm. Please come alone and don't tell anyone." 15 minutes later, Grace appeared, petite in a navy blue dress, her eyes full of concern and love. When she saw Maya in her wedding gown, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She broke into tears. "Maya, sweetheart." "What happened?" she asked, trembling as she embraced her daughter tightly. In her mother's arms, Maya found the safety to release her pain finally. She told her everything, the cruel things Ethan had said behind the door, how he mocked her skin color and her family, and how the wedding was just part of his calculated career strategy. She played Aisha's recording, and Grace's expression shifted from shock to sorrow to a quiet, burning rage. "He tricked us," Grace whispered, tears sliding down her face. "We welcomed him into our home and he—" "I'm sorry, Mom," Maya said through a choked breath. "I was blind. I thought he loved me." Grace shook her head, cupping Maya's cheek gently. "You have nothing to apologize for. He's the deceiver, not you. You believed in love, and that's never something to be ashamed of." She wiped away her tears, her voice strengthening. "What do you want to do now? Do you still want to marry him?" "No," Maya replied immediately, her voice firm. "I can't marry a man who sees me and my family as less than. He doesn't love me. He doesn't respect me. It was all a lie." She paused, her eyes igniting with purpose. "I want to go back to the church, Mom. I want to face him right there in front of everyone so they can see who he is. I have the recording. I'm not letting him deceive anyone else." Grace looked at her daughter, a mix of concern and pride in her eyes. "You're stronger than I ever imagined, Maya. But be careful. A man like him, when exposed, can become dangerous. Do this with dignity. Don't let your anger cloud your strength." Maya nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly. "I promise, Mom. I won't let him drag me down again." Madame Rosa, the cafe owner, quietly approached and set down another glass of water, her eyes filled with unspoken understanding. "Sweet girl, I don't know what happened," she said softly, "but I see strength in you." She turned and walked away, giving mother and daughter space. At that moment, Maya felt her mother's unconditional love wrapped around her like armor. It gave her the strength she needed for what was to come. She texted Aisha, "Sis, get ready. I'm going back to the church. We're ending this." With her mother by her side, Maya adjusted her wedding dress not to become Ethan's bride, but to become a warrior standing for her dignity and her family. The sunset painted the sky in vivid shades of orange, mirroring the fire of determination burning inside Maya. She stepped out of Rosa's cafe hand in hand with her mother Grace, her wedding gown shimmering under the streetlights. Each step was a declaration she was no longer Ethan's naive bride, but a woman ready to reclaim her dignity. Aisha had already confirmed she was waiting at the church, with the audio recording the sharp weapon that would expose Ethan's true face. As Maya and Grace arrived at the church, light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting a solemn, suffocating glow across the entryway. Inside, tension hung thick in the air. Guests from close friends to distant relatives sat scattered across the pews, whispering nervously. Some had left, but many remained curious and confused about the ceremony's delay. Ethan stood near the altar speaking with the pastor, wearing a mask of concern that couldn't hide his agitation. When the church doors swung open, all eyes turned to Maya. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people stood abruptly. Ethan spun around, relief flashing across his face for a split second before shifting to panic at the sight of her cold expression. "Maya!" He rushed forward, voice laced with forced concern. "Where have you been? Everyone's worried. Are you okay?" Maya stopped, standing tall in the center aisle, her eyes locked on him with icy resolve. She felt her mother squeeze her hand gently, her silent strength. Aisha stood nearby, nodding in support, her phone ready in hand. "We need to talk, Ethan," Maya said, her voice ringing clear through the still sanctuary, not a hint of tremor. "Right here, right now, in front of everyone." Ethan frowned, trying to smile. "What's going on, sweetheart? Let's go talk in the back room." "Yeah, no need to worry, everyone." "But..." Maya raised her hand to stop him. "No, Ethan. What I have to say concerns every person here. Everyone who thought today was a celebration. They deserve to know the truth." Pastor Carter, an older man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Maya, we can arrange a private space if you need." But Maya shook her head, her voice steady. "Thank you, Pastor, but I want everyone to hear this. This isn't just my story. It's a truth hidden too long." She took a deep breath, letting her gaze sweep across the crowd. Her father Marcus standing in the front row, eyes filled with unwavering trust. Her friends who had flown thousands of miles to witness her big day. And Mr. Carter, Ethan's boss, sitting nearby with a look of growing concern. Maya turned to Ethan again, her voice now shaking slightly with emotion, but unwavering. "I heard everything, Ethan, about what you said to Jake behind that door. You said you wished I were whiter, that my family was a burden, that you were only marrying me to impress Mr. Carter and advance your career. You called me a tool. You said you'd keep me in line after the wedding." Gasps filled the sanctuary. Whispers turned to audible outrage. Ethan paled, his eyes wide with panic. "Maya, you misunderstood," he stammered. "I never said that. You're making it up." Before he could go on, Maya nodded to Aisha. Aisha stepped forward, raising her phone. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Then explain this, Ethan." She hit play, and Ethan's voice filled the church. "Marrying Maya is an opportunity. My boss loves stories about racial harmony. She needs to know her place. If she runs, she's not worthy to be my wife." Each sentence landed like a blade, tearing apart the polished image Ethan had so carefully crafted. Guests gasped. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads in disgust. Mr. Carter's brow furrowed deeply, his expression shifting from curiosity to fury. Ethan stood frozen like a predator caught in the spotlight. The air in the church grew thick and heavy with judgment. Every eye was on him, waiting for a response. But Maya wasn't finished. She stepped closer, her gaze cutting into him. "You thought you could use me, use my family to build your reputation. But today you'll learn I am not a pawn in your game." The air inside the church was suffocating, as if every breath had been held after Maya's revelations and Aisha's damning recording. All eyes drilled into Ethan, who stood frozen, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The smug confidence that once helped him craft his perfect facade had crumbled, leaving behind a man cornered, exposed, and out of excuses. But Maya wasn't finished. She stepped toward the altar, where the marriage contract lay waiting, her gaze unwavering, yet full of emotion. Ethan reached out toward her in a last-ditch effort to salvage the moment. "Maya, please listen to me. I was just joking. The pressure from my family and work made me say stupid things. You know I love you." His voice trembled, laced with desperation and anger, but no one in the room believed him anymore. "Mr. Carter." Ethan's boss shook his head, his eyes heavy with disappointment. Ethan's mother Linda, seated in the front row, flushed red with shame, her lips pressed into a tight line. Maya turned to face Ethan, her eyes no longer filled with pain, but with unwavering strength. "Love me," she said, her voice ice cold. "You don't know what love is, Ethan. You only know how to use people. You disrespected me, my family, my culture, and you thought I'd bow my head and accept it. But you were wrong." She paused, drawing a deep breath, then spoke louder, her voice echoing through the church. "I am not a stepping stone for your ambition. I am Maya, daughter of Marcus and Grace, a woman proud of who she is. And today, I choose freedom." She turned to the altar and picked up the marriage contract, the stack of papers meant to symbolize vows Ethan never intended to keep. The room was silent, every eye trained on her. With steady hands, Maya tore the contract in half. The sound of ripping paper cut through the silence like a blade, a final severing of the lie she had almost been trapped in. The pieces drifted to the floor, glinting under the stained glass light. "This is my wedding gift to myself," Maya declared, her voice firm, yet full of emotion, sweeping her gaze across the crowd. "Freedom from a man who never loved me or respected me. I would rather have no wedding than spend a lifetime with a racist who saw me as a tool for his gain." The room erupted. Applause broke out, rippling through the pews. Voices cried out in support. Her father Marcus stood tall, eyes glistening with pride. Grace held Aisha's hand, smiling through tears. One of Maya's friends shouted, "That's right, Maya. You did the right thing." Even a few of Ethan's guests turned their heads, shaking them in disgust. Ethan, now alone in the storm of condemnation, shouted desperately, "You'll regret this, Maya. Do you think you'll find someone better than me? I gave you a chance." But his words were drowned in the rising chorus of disapproval. One of Maya's uncles stood up, pointing at Ethan. "Shut up, coward. She deserves better than you." Maya didn't respond. She stepped down from the altar, her eyes never meeting Ethan's again. She walked past him, with her head held high, her wedding dress glittering like armor. When she reached her parents, Marcus opened his arms and embraced her tightly. "You make me so proud," he whispered. Grace took her hand, eyes glowing with love. Aisha ran to her, throwing her arms around her cousin. "You did it, Maya. You were amazing." Maya turned to face the guests one last time, her voice calm but resolute. "Thank you all for coming today. I'm sorry this wasn't the joyful event you expected, but I hope you understand why I had to do this. I won't live a lie, and I won't let anyone diminish my worth." She walked out of the church, surrounded by her family and closest friends, leaving Ethan alone among torn paper and contemptuous stares. Dusk settled over the city as Maya stepped out of the church, the cool night air brushing against her tear-streaked cheeks. The weight of the wedding dress no longer felt like a burden. It was a symbol of her triumph, a reminder that she had walked away from a lie and reclaimed her dignity. Behind her, the church doors slowly closed, muffling the lingering whispers of shocked guests and the echo of Ethan's disgrace. Her family, Mr. Marcus, Mrs. Grace, and Aisha, stood by her side. Their presence, a shield of unwavering love. Friends gathered around, some weeping for her pain, others praising her courage, their voices a chorus of support that drowned out the sting of betrayal. As they walked to the parking lot, Maya felt a strange lightness, as if shedding the illusion of Ethan's love had freed her soul. But the journey was far from over. News of the catastrophic wedding spread like wildfire. The next morning, social media buzzed with posts about Maya's bravery. A guest had recorded her speech and the playback of Ethan's damning words, and the clip went viral on platforms like X, garnering thousands of shares and comments. "This is what standing up to racism looks like," one user wrote. "Maya is an inspiration," another declared. The story sparked heated discussions about hidden prejudice and the courage to confront it, turning Maya into an unexpected symbol of resistance. Ethan faced swift consequences. Mr. Carter, his boss, issued a public statement condemning his actions, emphasizing that such behavior was antithetical to the company's values. The promotion Ethan had schemed for was revoked, and he was placed on indefinite leave. Colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be tainted by association. Whispers in their social circles painted him as a pariah, his carefully crafted image shattered. Ethan attempted to salvage his reputation with a half-hearted apology to X, claiming he was misunderstood, but the backlash was relentless, and his words fell on deaf ears. Maya, meanwhile, chose to retreat from the public eye to heal. She spent the first week at her parents' home in Harlem, surrounded by the warmth of family. Mr. Marcus cooked her favorite jerk chicken, and Mrs. Grace shared stories of their struggles with prejudice, reminding Maya that resilience was in her blood. Aisha organized movie nights, filling the house with laughter to ease the pain. But Maya knew healing required more than comfort. It demanded purpose. She began attending a local support group for Black women, where she shared her story. The women listened, nodded, and shared their own experiences of betrayal and triumph, helping Maya see that her pain was part of a larger tapestry of strength. Inspired by these connections, Maya decided to channel her experience into action. She started a blog, Unveiled Truths, where she wrote about her journey and the insidious ways racism can hide in relationships. Her posts resonated widely, drawing readers from across the country. She was invited to speak at a community event in Harlem, where she stood before a crowd, her voice steady as she recounted her story. "I thought love would shield me from hate," she said, "but I learned that loving myself is the greatest shield." The audience erupted in applause, and several young women approached her afterward, saying her words gave them the courage to leave toxic situations. Months later, on a crisp spring morning, Maya stood on her apartment balcony, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of pink and orange. The pain of Ethan's betrayal still lingered, a faint scar on her heart, but it no longer defined her. She had returned to her job as a fashion designer, pouring her energy into creating bold, vibrant designs that celebrated her heritage. She reconnected with old friends, joined a jazz dance class, and even started sketching again, her pencil tracing dreams of a future unburdened by the past. As the sun peeked over the horizon, Maya smiled, feeling the warmth on her skin. She was free, not just from Ethan, but from the fear of being unworthy. Her story had rippled outward, inspiring others to speak their truths and challenge injustice. She knew the road ahead would face challenges, but she was ready. She realized love would come again, not from someone who saw her as a means to an end, but from someone who cherished her for all she was. Until then, she would live fiercely, love herself deeply, and never be silent in the face of hate.